In the quiet winter of 1943, an old man lay in a modest New York hotel room, the weight of a lifetime of unfulfilled dreams pressing against his frail chest. Outside, the world pulsed with electric lights, radio waves, and humming machines, all built on foundations he had laid, though few remembered his name. Long before this obscurity, before the shadows of loneliness closed around him, Nikola Tesla's mind had been lit with the spark that would change the world. That spark was not just curiosity, it was an unrelenting, all-consuming vision. He was born in 1856 in Smiljan, a small village in what was then part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. His father, a Serbian Orthodox priest, wanted him to follow a religious path, while his mother, though uneducated, was a natural inventor, crafting tools and devices for the household. From her, young Nikola inherited not only nimble fingers but also an imagination that seemed unbound by the limits of reality. He could picture entire mechanisms in his mind and rotate them, improve them, dismantle them, without ever touching a piece of metal. This ability, known as eidetic visualization, would become the core of his genius. Childhood for Tesla was marked by both wonder and loss. He was deeply attached to his older brother Dane, whose sudden death left a scar that never healed. Yet even in grief, Tesla's fascination with the mysteries of nature grew. He marveled at lightning splitting the sky, feeling it was not just a spectacle but a key to an unknown force waiting to be understood. At school, his teachers noted his exceptional memory and his unusual way of solving problems, though some dismissed his ideas as impractical fantasies. Tesla never argued in anger. He simply let his mind prove them wrong later. When he entered the Polytechnic School in Graz, Tesla immersed himself in the study of electrical engineering. It was there he first encountered the Gram dynamo, a device that could operate as both a generator and a motor. Observing it, Tesla conceived of a revolutionary improvement, an alternating current system that could transmit electricity over vast distances. His professors scoffed. The prevailing wisdom insisted that direct current was the only safe and feasible choice, but Tesla's mental blueprint for AC machines was already complete. His determination to bring it to life only deepened. Life in academia, however, was not without struggle. Tesla's health suffered from periods of intense overwork, and family pressures pulled him away from his studies in Prague. Despite these setbacks, his mind remained restless, absorbing every detail of electrical theory, physics, and mechanical design. He spoke several languages fluently, devoured literature, and cultivated a discipline of thought that allowed him to solve complex engineering problems entirely in his head before touching a single tool. By his mid-20s, Tesla found himself working in the rapidly advancing European electrical industry. In Paris, he was employed by the Continental Edison Company, where his skill in repairing and improving electrical equipment earned him recognition. It was here that the idea of taking his visions to America began to form. In the United States, Thomas Edison was already a towering figure, controlling much of the electrical infrastructure. Tesla believed that if he could show Edison the superiority of alternating current, the world would change. In 1884, with little more than a few coins and a letter of recommendation in his pocket, Tesla boarded a ship to America. The journey was far from smooth. At one point, his belongings were stolen, leaving him nearly destitute. Still, he clutched a letter addressed to Edison like a ticket to destiny. The letter described Tesla as a man of genius, who would be invaluable to any endeavor. When he finally arrived in New York, the sight of the city's skyline, bristling with smokestacks and dotted with glowing electric lamps, must have felt like a glimpse of the future he intended to shape. Meeting Edison in person was a pivotal moment. Tesla's neat European manner contrasted sharply with Edison's pragmatic, hands-on style. Edison relied on trial and error, while Tesla relied on mental precision. Still, Edison offered him work, testing and improving DC generators. Tesla labored tirelessly, even redesigning systems to save Edison's company money. But when he proposed implementing his alternating current ideas, the reaction was cool at best. Edison dismissed AC as dangerous and impractical. It was a clash not of intelligence but of philosophy. Edison championed what was already working. Tesla pursued what could work better. This early rejection did not break Tesla's resolve. If anything, it hardened it. He had crossed the Atlantic not to be a cog in someone else's machine, but to revolutionize the very way the world used energy. Every obstacle was fuel for his determination, every doubt from others a silent challenge to prove them wrong. The path ahead would demand more than engineering skill. It would require endurance against powerful opponents, unyielding faith in his vision, and a willingness to stand alone against the tide of accepted belief. Long before the battles for recognition, before the towers and coils and the dazzling demonstrations that would make crowds gasp, Tesla was already forging the blueprint of the modern world inside his mind. And he knew, even then, that the cost of such a vision might be isolation, but the reward would be a legacy measured not in money or fame, but in the transformation of civilization itself. Tesla's first months in America were marked by relentless work for Edison's company, redesigning inefficient machinery and solving technical problems that had stumped entire teams. His methods were unusual. He rarely drew detailed blueprints, preferring to construct the machines in his mind until every flaw was addressed. This precision impressed some colleagues but created friction with Edison, whose approach relied on testing countless variations until something worked. That difference in philosophy soon became a fault line between them. The immediate issue was electricity itself. Edison's empire ran on direct current, a system that could only transmit power short distances without significant loss. To power entire cities, DC required generating stations every few blocks, an expensive and limiting arrangement. Tesla knew alternating current could travel far greater distances with minimal loss, using transformers to step voltage up for transmission and down for safe usage. It was not theory to him. He had already visualized the generators, motors, and transformers needed to make it possible. When Tesla proposed developing an AC system for Edison's company, he was met with outright dismissal. Edison argued AC was too dangerous and that the public would never accept it. Tesla countered with its efficiency and scalability, but Edison was not persuaded. Eventually, a dispute over promised payment for other completed work led Tesla to resign. The break was decisive. He left with no money, no equipment, and only his determination to prove alternating current's value. For a time, Tesla's fortune sank. He took odd jobs, even digging ditches to survive, while searching for investors who might believe in his vision. In 1887, he finally secured backing to establish his own laboratory in New York. There, he built functional AC motors and generators, demonstrating their superiority to anyone willing to watch. His inventions caught the attention of George Westinghouse, an industrialist who immediately saw AC's potential for powering cities and industries across vast distances. Westinghouse bought Tesla's patents and brought him into his company, providing both resources and a platform to challenge Edison's dominance. This alliance set the stage for one of the most intense rivalries in the history of technology, the War of Currents. Edison launched a fierce campaign to discredit AC, warning it was a deadly hazard. Public demonstrations were staged where animals were electrocuted with alternating current to highlight its danger, and Edison's supporters lobbied for laws limiting transmission voltages to levels that would cripple AC systems. It was as much a battle for public perception as it was for technological superiority. Tesla, however, was undeterred. He knew AC's advantages could not be erased by fearmongering forever. His designs allowed efficient generation and distribution of electricity to entire regions from a single plant, something Edison's DC could never match. The ultimate proving ground came in 1893 when Westinghouse and Tesla secured the contract to power the world's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. For 6 months, over 200,000 electric lamps lit the fairgrounds, powered entirely by AC generators. Visitors marveled at the brilliance and reliability of the system, and the display became a turning point in the public's acceptance of alternating current. Shortly afterward, the Niagara Falls Power Project brought Tesla's vision into full reality. Massive AC generators harnessed the fall's energy and transmitted power to Buffalo, New York, more than 20 miles away. This success marked the definitive triumph of alternating current over direct current, reshaping the infrastructure of the modern world. Cities could now be powered from centralized plants, industries could expand, and electricity could reach rural areas that DC could never have served. Yet, while Tesla's technical victory was clear, the financial benefits were less favorable to him personally. As Westinghouse's company struggled during an economic downturn, Tesla voluntarily tore up a royalty contract that could have made him one of the richest men alive. He valued progress over profit, a decision that kept AC alive but left him with far less security than he deserved. By the end of the 1890s, alternating current had become the global standard for electricity transmission, a foundation upon which modern civilization was built. Tesla had proven his critics wrong, not by words but through undeniable achievement. The war of currents ended with AC's victory, yet for Tesla, this was only the first step. The success of alternating current freed his mind to turn toward new ambitions: wireless power, global communication, and inventions so far ahead of their time that even his contemporaries struggled to grasp them. He had won a battle that changed the world, but the wars ahead would test him in ways no rival like Edison ever could. With alternating current established as the new standard, Tesla turned his focus to ambitions that went far beyond lighting cities and running factories. He envisioned a future where electrical power and information could be transmitted wirelessly across the globe, accessible to anyone, anywhere, without the need for wires or costly infrastructure. This was not a vague dream. In his mind, the principles were already clear, and the devices required to achieve it were well within his capacity to build. Central to these ambitions was the Tesla coil, a resonant transformer capable of generating extremely high voltages and frequencies. Unlike conventional electrical equipment, it could create powerful oscillating currents that leapt through the air, illuminating lamps held meters away without any connection. Tesla demonstrated this to stunned audiences, holding glowing tubes in his hands, seemingly conjuring light from nothing. To him, this was proof of concept for a much grander system, one that could transmit not only light but energy itself over long distances. He believed that Earth itself could serve as a conductor, with the atmosphere acting as a natural medium for energy transfer. By tuning electrical oscillations to specific resonant frequencies, power could be broadcast from a single point and received anywhere on the planet. In parallel, he saw that the same principles could carry information, allowing for instantaneous communication between continents without reliance on telegraph cables. In essence, Tesla was describing both wireless electricity and a global communications network decades before radio or the Internet existed in practical form. Securing funding for such a bold project required more than technical brilliance. Tesla approached prominent financiers, among them J.P. Morgan, whose interest was piqued by the prospect of a worldwide wireless communications system that could outcompete the transatlantic telegraph business. With Morgan's backing, Tesla began construction of a massive facility on Long Island, Wardenclyffe Tower. The structure was designed to be the first node in a planetary network, transmitting signals and power across oceans. While the tower rose, Tesla continued refining his ideas. He foresaw personal handheld devices capable of receiving both energy and information from the air, enabling not only communication but also portable power supply. His descriptions were astonishingly similar to modern smartphones, wireless chargers, and the global Internet. Yet, despite the elegance of his vision, practical and financial realities began to close in. Marconi's success in sending a wireless signal across the Atlantic in 1901 shifted public attention and investor confidence. Although Tesla had filed patents for radio years earlier, Marconi's achievement, backed by substantial capital and media coverage, made him appear as the pioneer in wireless communication. The U.S. Patent Office initially sided with Marconi, granting him recognition despite Tesla's prior work. This was more than an insult. It undermined Tesla's credibility with potential investors at the very moment he needed them most. J.P. Morgan, focused on profit rather than idealism, grew impatient when he realized Tesla's plan included free wireless power for the world. The concept of limitless, unmetered energy was incompatible with the business model of selling electricity by the kilowatt-hour. Funding dried up, and Wardenclyffe Tower's construction stalled. Without capital to complete the project, Tesla faced mounting debts. By 1906, the tower stood unfinished, a silent monument to unrealized potential. Eventually, it was dismantled and sold for scrap to pay creditors. The loss was more than financial. It was a blow to Tesla's deepest convictions about the future. Yet he refused to let go of the underlying vision. He continued to speak publicly about wireless power and its potential to eliminate scarcity, connect humanity, and even prevent wars by fostering interdependence through shared energy and communication. Tesla's laboratory work also extended into other advanced fields during this period. He experimented with high-frequency currents for medical purposes, explored the concept of particle beam weapons, and investigated ways to harness renewable sources such as geothermal heat. However, these pursuits often went unnoticed by a public more captivated by tangible consumer technologies. Though his wireless dream had been derailed, Tesla's work during this period laid the groundwork for much of the modern world's infrastructure. Concepts he developed, resonant energy transfer, tuned circuits, and high-frequency generation, would later be embedded in technologies ranging from radio broadcasting to radar and even modern wireless charging. While his name faded from headlines, the silent spread of his ideas into the work of other inventors ensured that his influence persisted, even when his own projects failed to reach completion. This chapter of his life was both triumphant and tragic. Triumphant because he had proven the feasibility of many wireless principles, tragic because he lacked the financial and political machinery to see them realized at the scale he imagined. Still, Tesla remained convinced that the future would one day catch up to his vision, even if he would not live to see it. The collapse of Wardenclyffe Tower marked the beginning of a long decline in Tesla's fortunes, though his mind remained as active as ever. Without steady funding, many of his inventions remained locked in notebooks rather than realized in metal and wire. The industrial world moved forward, often using principles he had pioneered, yet his own name began to fade from public memory. Companies that had once courted him now passed him over, favoring those who could deliver profits quickly. The patents that had once provided him income expired, removing a crucial financial lifeline. Tesla's refusal to compromise his ideals often deepened his difficulties. When approached with military contracts that could have restored his wealth, he turned them down if the designs were intended purely for destruction. He argued that technology should elevate humanity, not annihilate it. This principled stance, admirable in moral terms, made him seem impractical to industrialists who measured success in revenue and influence rather than ethical restraint. By the second decade of the 20th century, Tesla's living conditions reflected his precarious position. He moved from one New York hotel to another, often leaving behind unpaid bills that sympathetic managers reluctantly wrote off. In private, he lived with a strict personal discipline, structured meals, precise daily routines, and a commitment to his work even without an audience. Yet he also grew more eccentric, focusing his attention on pigeons he fed in nearby parks. One injured bird in particular became a companion, and he claimed to understand her as one might a lifelong friend. These habits fed into the public perception of him as an odd recluse rather than the architect of modern electrical systems. Newspapers occasionally sought him out for interviews, often more interested in sensational statements than serious discussion of his research. Tesla obliged with grand predictions about future technology, wireless energy grids, weather control, remote-controlled weapons of defense. But such visions were either dismissed as impossible or treated as the musings of a once great mind now past its prime. The scientific community, meanwhile, had shifted toward incremental advances and large corporate laboratories, leaving little space for the lone inventor working in isolation. Despite these setbacks, Tesla continued to tinker, design, and theorize. He proposed new turbine engines without blades, systems for harnessing the sun's heat, and devices for transmitting images wirelessly. None attracted the capital needed to move beyond prototypes. Investors feared his ambitions were too large, his time frames too long, and his disregard for commercial exploitation too absolute. His belief that technology should be freely shared clashed directly with the emerging patent-driven economy of the 20th century. His relationships with former allies also frayed. George Westinghouse remained respectful, but both men knew the era of grand electrical battles had ended, replaced by steady corporate consolidation. Marconi's continued public credit for radio technology, despite Tesla's earlier patents, remained a sore point, though Tesla eventually won a posthumous legal recognition of his priority. In life, however, this vindication never came, and the financial rewards of that breakthrough remained forever out of reach. The world around him modernized rapidly. Skyscrapers rose, automobiles crowded the streets, and radio broadcasts became a part of daily life, each development in some way touched by Tesla's ideas, yet without his name attached. The irony was that he had achieved the rare feat of changing civilization, but in doing so, he had built a world that no longer had space for his way of working. As he aged, Tesla's health began to deteriorate. The long years of stress, limited diet, and solitary habits took their toll. Yet even in physical decline, he filled his notebooks with calculations and designs. Visitors were struck by the clarity of his technical discussions, even as his body appeared frail and his clothes worn thin. He spoke with conviction about projects that might never leave paper, as if the act of conceiving them was itself a victory. By the 1930s, public attention had shifted entirely to other figures and newer industries. Occasional honors came his way, banquets, medals, polite acknowledgments from scientific societies, but these gestures did little to change his circumstances. He remained in modest hotel rooms, surrounded by papers, feeding his pigeons, and holding fast to the belief that his best work might still be ahead. This phase of Tesla's life was defined by a quiet resilience. While others measured success by wealth and recognition, he measured it by fidelity to his vision. He had surrendered opportunities for profit in exchange for the freedom to dream without constraint. The cost was heavy: financial insecurity, public misunderstanding, and isolation, but the principles that guided him in youth never wavered. In the shadows of a city illuminated by systems he had once fought to establish, Tesla worked on, unseen, unwilling to abandon the belief that the future could still be shaped by ideas born in a solitary mind. In January of 1943, Nikola Tesla died alone in his room at the New Yorker Hotel. He was 86 years old, frail, and without the wealth that his life's work might have promised. The room contained a lifetime's accumulation of papers, notebooks, and diagrams, many of which described technologies still beyond the reach of the age. Shortly after his death, officials moved quickly to secure these documents. Among them were designs for high-energy weapons, wireless power transmission systems, and advanced propulsion concepts. Some would vanish into government archives, their contents classified and their full significance debated for decades. Although Tesla's passing barely registered in the mainstream press, his absence was felt by those who understood the depth of his contributions. Alternating current systems, induction motors, radio foundations, remote control, fluorescent lighting, all had been touched, shaped, or outright invented by his mind. These were not small technical footnotes. They were the pillars upon which much of modern infrastructure was built. The irony was that his impact was so deeply embedded in everyday life that few stopped to trace it back to him. In the years that followed, his name lingered mostly among engineers, inventors, and a small circle of admirers who recognized that he had been more than a scientist or a tinkerer. He had been a visionary, one whose concepts often leapt decades ahead of what industry could manufacture or society could accept. As the 20th century progressed and new generations of engineers tackled wireless communication, automation, and renewable energy, many found themselves unknowingly following trails Tesla had already mapped. It took time for the broader public to rediscover him. The space race, the rise of electronics, and the growing fascination with futuristic technologies led researchers and historians back to his patents and writings. They found that he had anticipated not only the shape of electrical power networks but also ideas resembling radar, drones, and global information systems. Gradually, recognition began to grow, though it often came framed as curiosity about the eccentric genius who had fed pigeons and made lightning in his laboratory. By the latter half of the century, Tesla had shifted from being a nearly forgotten figure to an icon. His name became a symbol for uncompromising innovation and for the lone inventor standing against entrenched systems. Books and documentaries explored his life, sometimes embellishing his eccentricities but increasingly celebrating his achievements. Scientific societies revisited his work with fresh respect, acknowledging that the alternating current system alone placed him among the most important inventors in history. Tesla's legacy reached beyond technical contributions. It influenced how innovation itself was perceived. He embodied the principle that imagination should not be constrained by immediate profit or conventional wisdom. This ethos inspired inventors, entrepreneurs, and researchers to pursue breakthroughs that initially seemed impossible. The modern era's wireless charging technologies, renewable energy distribution methods, and even the ambition for global internet access through satellites echo Tesla's foundational concepts. His influence also extended into culture and identity. The name, Tesla, became synonymous with visionary thinking, used by companies, artistic works, and educational institutions to evoke a sense of futuristic possibility. In this transformation from forgotten man to celebrated figure, there was an unspoken recognition that society had overlooked him in life but could honor him in memory. Yet his story remains more than a cautionary tale of unrecognized genius. It is also a blueprint for how profound ideas can outlive their originators. Tesla did not see his dream of global wireless power realized, but his theoretical groundwork continues to inform research in energy transmission and sustainable infrastructure. His belief that science should serve humanity without exploitation still resonates in debates about the ethical use of technology. Today, standing in a world lit by currents he championed, connected by wireless signals he envisioned, and driven by machines based on his principles, it is impossible to deny the scope of his impact. The skyscrapers, the illuminated cities, the instantaneous communication across continents, these are, in part, the realization of concepts born in Tesla's mind decades before they became reality. His life reminds us that true innovation often begins as an idea dismissed by the majority, only to become indispensable later. In the end, Tesla's legacy belongs not just to science but to the human capacity for imagination. His work was proof that a single mind, devoted entirely to discovery, can shape the course of history. Though he died without wealth or acclaim, the future he worked toward became the present we inhabit. And as he once said, "The present is theirs, the future, for which I really worked, is mine." In that sense, Nikola Tesla remains not a figure of the past, but a silent architect of the modern world, his fingerprints still on every current that flows, every signal that travels, and every innovation that dares to look beyond the horizon.